Hello, I'm David Groninger here in Seattle, Washington, and each day I ask myself a question, and the question is this: how can I make a 10-minute message that might help 10 million people? And every day I write down the answers that come from my imagination or my memory as to maybe what this message might be. Today, the message I have is this. It is simply: know the source of your resource. Understand where your resources that you need in life, understand where they come from. The most sourceful source of your resources. The first cause of your resource. The highest source of your resource. Now, the resources that we need to live, for example, we need air to breathe. We need water to drink. We need food to eat. We need a place to live. We need friends. We need a feeling of safety or comfort or protection. We certainly need a cash flow. We live in a society whereby we don't do barter anymore, but we can do that. So you have to have cash flow and a cash flow for your retirement years when maybe you're not working anymore. So if you were to list out all of the resources, the valuable resources, the needed resources, and maybe in the order of priority, list out your resources and ask yourself this question: do I understand the source of all of these resources? Do I know where these resources are coming from? And see if you can maybe make a diagram, like a map that works backwards to the source of these resources. Just like if you live near a stream and you had access to water because you live near the stream, and water is a valuable resource, knowing the source of the stream would be obviously some mountain, probably, and the rain comes and the snow melts and water comes down a stream, or something like this. Well, understanding the source can help you, because if you need this water, and if water is necessary for you to live, which obviously it is, and all of a sudden you look at your stream and there's no water there, well, there must be some blockage somewhere between where you are and the source. Maybe somebody has diverted the stream to their use only. They have taken over this source. So by understanding the source to begin with, you might then ask yourself, well, what kind of assurance do I have that this source is not going to dry up, that this source is going to continue to serve me? Because by understanding the source, like for example of the river or the stream, knowing where the source is and knowing all of the steps in between and the distance in between, and understanding the risks involved about, well, what if somebody actually does divert the river? Or what if there's no rain that year and there's no snow, so there's no river? Understanding these things then helps you identify alternative sources for this resource. Maybe you can store water for a few years. Maybe you can buy it somewhere else. But the idea is this: if you were to list out the resources of your life and prioritize them, because normally when we run into trouble or problems in life, it's because of something important that we have been neglecting, because we've been spending so much time on something that's maybe not very important. So ask yourself the question: what are my valuable resources? What do I need to have a happy life, to even have life at all? And then identify the source, the highest source of your resource. And it's interesting that the word resource starts with an R, and the word source starts with an S. So the S comes after the R in the alphabet. So one way to remind yourself of the work that's involved is that you have to go a little bit further. Since S follows R in the alphabet, think about it this way. You have to go beyond the resource. That's like, you have to go from R to S. You have to go the extra mile. You have to work a little bit harder, and it's going to be mental work. It's going to take some courage, some organizing of your time, a way of thinking that might not be the same as the way everybody's thinking around you. So think about this. It's going to take work, and it's worth the work. List out your resources. Ask yourself the question about it, and then identify what are the sources. When you identify the sources, then you kind of make a map from the source back to where you are, and you look at all of the possibilities of, well, what if something wrong happens? What if something wrong happens? What if something wrong happens? And my source and the conduit or the flow or the roadway or the route from the source to myself. What if something blocks this flow? Find alternative sources. So when you find the source, you do everything you can to build a conduit, to build a pipeline, to ensure that this flow is going to happen. So that's my simple talk today. Find the source of your resources. Identify your resources. When we ask ourselves questions, it's an easy way for us to come up with the answers. So ask yourself, what are all the resources that I need, and prioritize them. And then ask yourself, what is the source of each of these resources? You might find that some of your resources have common sources. And so once you understand this, now you know how protective you have to be, or how wise you have to be in order to really safeguard or understand this source. Because this kind of a source, which is the source of many of your resources, is a very valuable source. And it's worth all of the effort, time, education, in order to understand what your role is. What is your part in this whole thing? It might be getting more education, training. You might have to change the way you think about things in order to work in harmony with the people who control this source. And have you noticed that when civilizations or people or countries have problems, it's generally because there's a resource they don't have, like maybe a job, or cash flow, or maybe energy. There's some resource they don't have, food or coal or oil, a resource that they do not have, and somebody's trying to control or monopolize the resource, then maybe raise the price or make you jump through hoops in order that you can somehow benefit from this. Do everything you can to find independent ways of supplying your resources. And then the ways where you have to be interdependent upon and dependent upon other people, build good relationships with these people, and relationships and long-term relationships, and be a valuable person yourself, so that whoever is supplying you your resource knows that you're worth it because you're doing your job, you're paying for it, and you are doing something of great value maybe with the resource, but you also represent a high value back to the person or group of people or institution that this resource is coming from. So that's David's 10-minute talk today. I do not know if it's going to help 10 million people, but I do know that I've tried to limit it to well, what do you know? I'm actually a minute shy of my 10 minutes. Well, I'll end off anyway, and this is David Groninger saying that every single day I make a 10-minute message with the idea that one of these messages is going to help 10 million people. I'm going to do this for 3 years, and that'll make over 1,000 talks, and I know for sure that one of these talks is actually going to help 10 million people. And I just don't know which one it's going to be. The message today is simply this: identify the resources you need in your life. Sometimes as we change, our resources change. As we move to a different area, do a different job, or in a different relationship, as we age, our needs change. As our needs change, the resources that we need in order to have a stable, comfortable, happy life, these resources change. So if you manage your life well, This will include understanding the resources you need for your life, the source of these resources, and becoming educated as to just what is this source. Find multiple sources to every resource as well. This will make you more secure and more independent. And when you're helping with other people, well, what do you know about that? My trusty clock. Well, that's been the actual 10-minute mark. You can help other people because so many times their issues, their problems, are there's some lacking resource. How many people get together for coffee because they're unhappy in a relationship or in a marriage, where there's a resource called compassion or empathy or love or friendship or caring. There's a resource that's somehow dried up, that's no longer flowing in their life. You know, in the area of friendships and personal relationships, just for example, if you were to consider that at any given time, the person who's in love with you and that you're in love with him, we cannot control other people. We can control ourselves. So if we allow other people to freely make choices in life, and we know that in advance, then it might behoove us to have many, many friends in life, so that if our significant other might decide to become somebody else's significant other, it's okay, because we have enough friends that we can develop a new source for the resource of our love and our affection. Just as an example, you can help your friends because so many people you know, when they're having trouble, it's because of a resource. Sometimes they do not even know it. They just know that they're feeling the emotional discomfort about something, and then people just talk about their emotional discomfort and try to cure it by eating food or drinking something. But when you meet with people and you really want to help them, have them identify the resources in their life and identify which resources are missing or are deficient, and then help them discover what are the sources of these resources, help them build a conduit, a flow from the source, and this will be a way you can genuinely help people. And when you help them to understand how to do this, then you're truly helping somebody to help themselves. So that's my talk for today. Identify your resources and find the source of the resources and build a very strong, vital, lifelong connection between the source of your resource and your resource, and identify multiple sources for each resource. It's funny, these words, source and resource, but you get the message, I hope. Well, I've gone over a couple minutes, so I'm going to end off now. This is David Groninger in Seattle, Washington, on December the 5th of 2015, on a cold and windy and rainy night that I just came back from a walk. And I'm going to say thank you very much for taking the time to listen to this message.